Welcome to this session. My name is Olivier Devis. I'm representing Radware. I'm responsible for the BeNeLux. So Radware is, maybe you know or you don't know, we're an Israeli cybersecurity company which exists now for about 25 years. And what in this presentation you're going to see is actually, from our perspective, what we see as a threat landscape. On the other hand, who's behind it. And third, also how we can avoid it. And also how we can cope with it. Because these things, cybersecurity, I'm going to give you a couple of years backwards in giving you a view like what do we see. So Radware itself, we specialize on the transport layer. So our objective is that applications, wherever you have them, is it on a phone, is it in your infrastructure, is it in Amazon, Google, that they keep on running, that they are not interrupted, but that you have a business continuity in that aspect. So what we see is, looking back in the last couple of years, what happened? Well, when you come out of COVID, what has COVID done to the IT environment? It forced companies to invest quicker in a digital acceleration, because we had all to work from home. Instead of going to the office, you had to work from home, you had to really adjust. Security settings had to be adjusted very quickly. So in order to give people access to their work environment, which they never had before. A lot of people didn't have that. And so that opened also, of course, some opportunities and ways for hackers and for cyber criminals to take advantage of. So, and once you see in 2021 what happened, so we are getting out of the COVID, and when the COVID was not even finished, we see that there's a conflict that started between Russia and Ukraine. There's a war that started, and also here new techniques have been developed to disrupt services, applications, to disrupt the normal behavior. We know quite a lot about that conflict itself, because in 2020 we signed up, it's a public reference, we signed up Zelensky. It's a name that is quite known, and I can tell you that we've seen all kinds of attacks coming up. So literally all kinds of vectors. They will try the latest and the newest and the brightest. Even later on, when you come to just October 7th of last year, we had the Hamas-Israel conflict. Yet again, there's all that Middle East, all the other pro-activists that will use whatever techniques possible and skills and knowledge to take down some services, web attacks. I'm going to give you a couple of examples also, like what happened here in our neighborhood and so around. And we see that when we're looking towards the future, AI is a big thing, but AI is also like they are developing agents that become more intelligent, agents that are going to collaborate together, and these collaboration together can be for a good use, but also can be for a less good use. And that will be used also to even increase the cyber threats. So that is what we see. And there's four main pillars which we see. The first thing is that everything is shifting. Shifting is that before it was rather easy to do a denial of service attack, a DDoS attack. It exists already about 50 years. The distributed one exists about 25 years. So it's very easy. You put 10,000 people at one door, you got overwhelmed. And that's what happens with websites, that's what happens with infrastructures. But that's layer 3, 4, they go up the stack, because we are moving the applications toward public clouds, we're moving into private clouds. That means that also the cyber criminals will move towards the cloud, because that's where the assets are. And so that's what the threat landscape that is shifting completely. There's new regulations coming up. We know that here, when you walk around, you will hear NIS2 that's going to be enforced from October. There's other regulations and so forth that we need to keep in mind. And if you're a company, and you would ask any company just to say, like, how do you want to go your old applications that are in the Unix or the old environment, and you want to put it new? And some companies would say, you know what? I want going to put everything in Azure. Another one, everything in Amazon. But in reality, they end up with a mix. Why? Because of an acquisition of other companies, or maybe a separate project, or maybe this application needs to stay inside because I don't feel secure that this is going to go on the public cloud. So as an IT department, to operate all of that, to keep it up and running, it's a lot of work. And it's also something that cybersecurity criminals, they are very aware of, is that if you have so much to maintain, well, the chances are that there's more loopholes and that they will discover. And talking about cybersecurity skills, you're all probably working in the cybersecurity and security in one way or another. There's no lack of job security because there's about 3 million jobs postings out worldwide, and it's not going down, it's even increasing. So there's enough job, but it brings a stress to organizations that want to do their projects themselves. Even to the point that if you say, I'm going to do everything in Azure, but I need to hire some people, young people from universities to really do that job. I've known companies that had to change from Azure to Google because these candidates that come, there were not that many. Second, they say, I don't like that environment. I prefer Google. If you don't like it, I'll go elsewhere. We see that, and we see that companies really have to adjust their strategy. And so here's a couple of figures. We have a report that you can free download that goes into a lot of details about what kind of attacks, where, which industry, and here are some numbers that it's not going to go down. Why is the DDoS not going down? Well, it's the price of a coffee. For €5, you can have 100 gig on the darknet, you can launch it, and you can take a system out. So it's cheap and it's effective. But of course, everybody knows you close the door and finished. But what we see is that when the assets are moving, you see that the malicious web traffic and these abuses of that is increasing far more. That's why in the layer 7, where the assets are. And so, who's behind it? Who's mostly behind it? These are just a couple of names, but we could categorize them in two groups. The first group, I would say these are the more like the proactivists, those that say like state-sponsored. These are the no-names, the killnets. You probably have heard that, because when there's an attack here, for example in Belgium, they say an outage or whatever, usually later on when you look at these names will pop up. This is just a name, but they have a lot of subcategories under it, and these are the ones that are being used. They also operate from a global scale. So they will go after whomever that they say, like, this is a threat for this country, so we're going to go behind. This one is IT Army for Ukraine. What is so specific about that one? When the conflict comes, so there's the Minister of Digitalization, he says, you know what, I'm going to do something smart. I want recruits. I want everybody in the world to support us through Ukraine to attack the bad guy, to Russia. So what did they do? They create actually some tools that and even games that you can use, but while you use these games, they attack some websites in Russia. So while, and who of us is going to, when they download a game, like the young kids also, they download a game, it's something fun to do, who's going to read all these little texts like the cookies and this is all included? You just say yes, and you start playing. But you agree that your device is being used to attack a website. So that is something that's happening on a global scale. Not only Ukraine, Russia has the same tools as well. Other countries are developing it as well. On the other hand, you have the religious groups. Like a couple of years ago, there was also in Sweden, there was somebody who says, I'm going to burn the Quran. And they did burn the Quran. The day after, there were some religious groups that Anonymous Sudan, that attacked the Swedish government, and the Swedish government was down. So this is the motivation. Although that's not always a pure motivation, because usually behind, it's also financial gain. And also sometimes reputation. Some just do it just to make a name for themselves. And if you think, I've known who it is, I know the organization, they're back in Russia, for example, you know what? You can ask them to be arrested. They're not. They're just free. They're even looked at heroes back there. So they will not be charged with anything. They can do whatever as long as they do not attack assets in Russia. So and here's a couple of examples of attacks. When we look at the third one, Luxembourg, that was end of March. That was following a visit of Zelensky that came to Luxembourg, the prime minister, and they said, like, I love you, we're going to help you and all of that. And the day after, there was attacks on more than 20 national entities. So basically a lot of organizations went down. So we see again, that's the no-name killnet that also attacked. What is so specific about that attack is that we've seen that these groups are starting to collaborate because they literally had a whole plan. You're going to attack this one, you're going to attack that one, and you see these groups collaborating like one whole. And that made them very efficient and very effective. And we see even if you think you're huge, you're big, even an Amazon gets hit. We see Crédit Agricole, not a small bank, gets hit. And so we can go on. Even Azure, when you look at Microsoft, last year also was hit by it. You can even look it up on the internet. And so here's just a list of the number of attacks that we can see. No surprise, Israel is number 1 for now. And Belgium is also there. We're currently on number 20. Maybe after the visit of Zelensky, we will increase a little bit our position. But usually we see that. That depends on what sometimes politics or the parliament or whatever will explain, will express. It follows with some attacks. So what does it cost? In average, we as Radware, we serve enterprises, companies. We've seen it's about $360,000 an hour. That's the damage. And it's not easy to calculate because there was a company, for example, that says, I'm not selling anything through my website, so for me, it costs nothing. There was one difference. There was a portal access on the main website for the employees working remote. And so they could not access that anymore, and you had 400 people could not work anymore. And they had to go, jump in the car, go to the office. The office was not foreseen for so many people. And that went on for weeks. And at the end, it cost them $2 million of loss. So sometimes it's not the direct cost that we see, but it's the indirect costs. I'm not even talking about reputation damage. And so what are the tools that they're using? Before, everything was on the darknet. You had to go through a Tor browser, and you had to have some certain credentials, and you had to prove yourself before you can access certain things, and then you can hire it. Today, you don't have to do that anymore. If you want to attack this afternoon someone, there's websites on the internet available. You can say, like, you know what? This is how you do it. And the way how these websites are set up, they're even sponsored sometimes by Killnet and No Name and all the other ones. They will even teach you. They give you free lessons. They will give you even questions and answers. And these tools are going so far that, you know what? We are going to give you an SLA. If it doesn't work, you get your money back. So that is the time that we are living in. And the way how it does, for example, this one, it's a tool that tells you, how can I bypass Google? How can I bypass Azure? Or some others. Scripts, about 56 ready-made scripts, tested, validated, guarantee on success. And all this for attacking. So all these are available, and these days, it's not expensive to do it. So, and one of these attacks, and this is the latest one that we've seen since last year, and this is a very dangerous one that brings down a lot of organizations. It is those that a DDoS is very easily seen. It's a spike of volume, and then you say, okay, it's a spike of volume, I close the door, finished, rate limiting. That's what usually most companies do. But this one is encrypted, means that it acts, you cannot see it, it's not going to decrypt it. So the first lines of defenses, the CDNs and all of that, they let it through. And it comes into your infrastructure. But then it uses legitimate IP addresses. It uses legitimate headers, legitimate content, and then they're going to randomize that in a very efficient way. So what happens is that they're going to launch a lot of requests per second, and which is going through the firewalls. It goes even very often through the web application firewall. It goes in the back in the application server, and he unpacks it, and then suddenly I receive 20,000 requests per second. Now the biggest load balancer cannot handle that, because the CPU will go through the roof, but the attack itself is maybe 20, 30 megabit. So from an operational perspective, you don't see it coming. It goes under the radar, and at the end, it explodes. And these are the attacks that we see. And the way how it summarizes is that it's an ultra-high RPS. This is what we also see, by the way, in Israel and Hamas and so on, very much. These kind of attacks that they bring it down. It's encrypted, it appears legitimate, and it randomizes it from the normal IP addresses. And I don't know if you know that, but the first thing that usually bots and hackers go after is unique IP addresses, names, and all of that, because they use that to create a whole army ready to be used to attack, even without that we know it. And now these days, how many IP addresses do you have? Maybe you have a coffee machine on your IP. Maybe you have a washing machine that's connected to the internet to tell you when your washing is finished. So all these things, they are legitimate IP addresses, and you can target them. So traditionals, what we've seen, because we built cybersecurity solutions already for 20 years, it cannot keep up. So traditional, by just having it on premise, and there we will deal with it, the equipment will not hold it. So how can you stay ahead with it? So as a Radware, we developed cybersecurity solutions since 2003. And for the first client that we signed up for was eBay. So you know eBay, huh? We all know eBay. And because they said at the beginning, you know what? There's a lot of traffic coming in. There's a lot of malicious traffic as well that we see, but our pipes are so huge, our data centers are so huge, you know what? We don't care. But after 6 months, they see that the amount of increase that came, they said at a certain moment, we're going to have a problem. So that's where they contracted with Radware. We developed actually a technology which is on a deep learning based since 2004. So basically what we do is we're going to go in a behavior way, looking at what is normal behavior, what is abnormal behavior. So at that allows us to filter clearly who is a right and a good user to the bad user. We're not just going to slam the door. Because if there is attacks today, what a lot of companies do, you know what? I'm going to close off France. I'm going to close off Germany, all these users that are coming from there. But there can be also some good users. You leave them also outside. And that can be the goal of the attacker. On the other hand, we also know that there are so many IP spoofs that they will just turn the attack, move it to Belgium, and they use the IPs that are spoofed here as ghosts to attack you. So basically, it doesn't help. So here's a couple of things that we protect against. The DDoS attacks, classic, volumetric, that's we protect against. We reduce the false positive to a maximum, so to able that the business applications, the processes can continue without any interruption. So no matter where your application resides, and that's the beauty of it, it's agnostic. If it's on premise, is it in Azure, is it in Google, is it in the private cloud? And even if you want to move from one to another, it doesn't matter. You have one security system that can block against all these attacks. The web attacks, we have also a web application firewall can be used. It's not just a positive model, it's also a negative model. It's both combined. Again, based on the philosophy, deep learning, adjusting, making sure who is right and who is wrong. You can just imagine that you have a super intelligent receptionist at your office. So somebody that comes, when you come to your office, every day you come in, and it's somebody that knows literally everybody in the company. And when you come in, of course, if there's suddenly like 10,000 people from an area and or a country that you absolutely don't know, it's very obvious. We all know, and that's not normal. But if somebody comes in, dresses, acts, has the badge, everything like your company, you want to make sure that that person that's sitting in the session, wait a minute, I'm going to take you aside here because there's something not right. So that is in a very simple way said, the way how also our techniques are. We're going to challenge response, we're going to really a deep filter, do it to make sure that who is that, even if it's encrypted. We have techniques actually to also deal with that. The bad bots. Half the internet is full of bots, and we all use it. When you're going on a holiday later on, you say, I'm going to take an airplane, you take maybe the flights and you see that's a bot that compares. But besides the good bots, about 26% of the whole internet is bad bots. And you want to keep it out because you're paying your infrastructure to handling these bots off. And so also that we can keep it outside. And also when you go to, for example, the other side, client-side protection, also making sure that your environment is protected. I'm going to give you another example which is done also with the COVID. So not everybody has maybe a corporate machine that is protected, that is only used by you to access the corporate environment. What if you have a private computer? You work at it and you say, no worries, I'm going in the portal, I can work from home, nice. And then your son or your daughter in the evening, Daddy, are you finished? Yeah. Well, I'm going to play my game. And so he's going online, he's going to play games, and then maybe he's going to be like, I want to be ahead. So I'm going to download a little cheater. So it gives me extra credits, whatever, to win my game. But that little cheater has a worm in it. And the day after, the father or the mother logs in again and it goes with to the system. And that's how it sometimes enters the environment. And so that you see that there's a threat also. Also, that is the client-side protection that we are all offering. So all of these security measures that we have, it's usually as a service, or it can be on-premise or in a hybrid environment. So it's in the clouds. And so what is the differentiator? It is that that intelligent security is that deep analyze. We use AI, we use deep learning. We use also the knowledge that we gather from the internet. We have honeypots global that allows us also to see what's happening on the other side so that we can preload already the defense systems on the other side. If there's a campaign on the finance going on, we also have ethical hackers, of course, that are also aware of that. So it's an integrated platform, doesn't matter, it's agnostic, it's one system. And so across the multi-clouds, you have a very stable environment that is fully protected. Consistent protections, expert defense. It's not easy to find good people. And for example, also in the application security, it's hard. And having them on board in the companies, most companies don't have it. If your business is selling vacuum cleaners, okay, the guy who's doing IT is maybe the one who's going to buy a computer, install it, and maybe connect it. But also here, it's a managed service. And if you are recognized by the market, here's a couple of recognitions. We do also have OEM agreements with companies that are very known. Cisco is one of them. So their security is actually us. We are under the hood. And with Checkpoint is the same. So their DDoS, their security solutions for that is the Radware, which is below, under the hood. So this is some recognitions about the DDoS, WAF, and so forth. And so where are we spread worldwide? This is the network that we are using. This is the CDN network from Amazon that we integrate natively. So we have capacity enough. And then we have our own scrubbing centers and our own WAF centers, which are distributed worldwide. So this is continuously growing. It's our own environment. So the latest that we've opened is a month ago is in Paris for the Olympics that they expect some trouble with. So this is in a nutshell, and as a closing remark, I would say thank you, and also I want to give you this one. from Albert Einstein. A clever person solves a problem. A wise one, he avoids it. But we need both. In cybersecurity, we need both. So thank you very much. Hope you have a great afternoon.